Welcome to the Wingman Show. Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Drew Brown, and my wingman, my man, the number one guy I know, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother? Welcome to the Wingman Show, where we're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you two badass jet pilots, rumble. Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Commander Drew Brown. My wingman, my friend, my main man is Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother Paul?
Good morning, Mr. Drew. It's good to see you today. We're going to have a good show. Glad to get things back on the road and get people in a good, positive frame of mind.
I agree. So I'll start off with a quote. It's better to be a failure at something you love than a success at something you hate. Once again, it's better to be a failure at something you love than a success at something you hate. And you know who said that, Dr. P?
No.
George Burns. George Burns was with Gracie Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were old-time TV, black and white shows that we used to watch.
Yeah. When there wasn't much to choose from, so everybody was kind of on the same wavelength, literally. And if you were lucky enough to have a television.
Right, even if you had it, that's correct. If you had a TV, you were lucky.
That's right.
All right, so let's start this show off with a little thing that happened to me. I went down to New Orleans last week to be with my grandchildren. And I'll show you a photo of my grandchildren. I just wanted to put them up there. So anyway, I went on Spirit because Delta wanted $750 round trip during the holidays, and Spirit only took $300. So I took a Spirit flight. Well, I'm 6'5", Dr. Paul, and I just don't fit in those seats in Spirit Airlines. So I had a window seat, so I have to turn to the side and my feet actually go into the next person's little space underneath. So anyway, I'm sitting there, and here comes two people that want to get into their seats, the center and the aisle seat, and they are dressed in Muslim garb. And I have this big Jewish star that you can see right here. Anyway, they sit down next to me, and you could tell that the man next to me was a little upset that I was invading his space. His wife said something in another language to him, and they go back and forth. And he looks at me. He says, "Can you sit up a little bit, maybe?" And I says, "I can't. I'm finished." So anyway, I thought this might be a little problem. It wasn't. We take off, and we start talking. Dr. Paul, I met such a wonderful man, Dr. Ahmed Arif. And just a little background on this guy. He has a free clinic for Muslims who cannot pay enough in Flint, Michigan. And actually, it's a Muslim clinic. I'm sure anybody can go there. So anyway, we're talking back and forth. We're having a good time. We're even talking about God. So here's a Muslim and a Jew talking with each other, having a good time. Matter of fact, we traded numbers. That's how I know his name now. He became a friend of mine. And my point is, with all the killing we're seeing on television, there is a lot of bad blood out there. But now you got a Jew and a Muslim talking to each other that had great blood and a great kind of discussion together, but that's not on TV. So I'm bringing it to you. People are good. People do get along. And I'm sorry we get to see all the horrors on television, Dr. Paul.
Well, that's a good story. And yeah, people do get along, and a lot of them are good. And no, we don't see enough of it. I mean, this is you're set up. You say, okay, a Jew and a Muslim, I got the star. You know, it sounds like a setup for conflict, obviously conflict, or maybe the beginning of a joke about, the Jew and a Muslim walk in a bar and, something goes down. But here you have a very pleasant story on a doctor that's providing free medical care to people who obviously need it and is doing good things.
Yes.
There's nothing negative about that.
Yes, Dr. Paul. And what I'm saying is that really happened. And if it happened to me, it's happening all over the world. We just don't get to see it. It's not, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, here at the Wingman Show, we say if it's good, it should. And so we let off with that. So check us out. Check out those badass jets we got behind us. Behind Dr. Paul, he has the famous A7 Corsair that Dr. Paul flew. And behind me, I got an F-14 Tomcat, which is a badass plane. And I like the smoke rising. And we have the guys on the aircraft carrier deck.
Yeah, unfortunately, I gotta give you a little correction. Those are FA Crusaders.
Oh, wow.
That's a common misconception because the F8 and the A7 are made by the same company, Vought. And in fact, the A7 was based on the F8 came first. The A7 was based on the F8, basically, and he changed it. So it's easy to misidentify. I've done it too a few times. The nose is going to be different. It's a little bit longer. But if you just peek at both of them real quick, you could say, yeah, it's an A7. And actually, no, it's an F8 made by the same company, Vought. So you're forgiven. You're forgiven.
Thank you. I make a mistake once in a while. And as soon as I make a mistake, I admit to it and move the hell on.
I think that's your first mistake this year.
Well, how about all you guys listening to us out there? Thank you so much for being our frequent flyers. That's people who watch us and listen to us every week. Any of you who look at us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. That helps Dr. Paul and I a lot. Hit us up on Instagram, on Facebook, on Apple Podcast, on iHeartRadio. There's a lot of places you can get us. And we also have a newsletter at wingmanshow.com, wingmanshow.com, and we have frequent flow line. That means you guys can write to us, ask us a question, and we'll answer it. Matter of fact, I have a question that was written to us just this week. Matter of fact, it's a man from Fremont, California, a 20-year-old younger guy, and he wants to be an engineer, and he knows Dr. Paul's an engineer, but he's not sure of what kind of engineer he wants to be. So he's asking, can Dr. Paul just quickly explain some of the types of engineers there are? Dr. Paul, take it away.
Yeah, well, it's he's got a lot of choices. There are all kinds of engineers. There's more types of engineering studies available now than when I was in school. But there are big four. The core four would be like electrical, mechanical, civil, and chemical. Electrical engineers obviously deal with power transmission. Civil engineers deal with building, construction, and really infrastructure, all of infrastructure. Mechanical engineers deal with machinery, things are moving. Chemical engineers oftentimes work in petroleum industry. They might work with industries making soap. The thing about engineering, you can really go in many different directions. There's biomedical engineering. There's nuclear engineering. Nuclear engineering was a new thing when I was going to school. And actually, our school had a nuclear power plant in it, which I think was one of 3 or 4 in the United States. But Westinghouse was big in Pittsburgh, and they actually donated a nuclear reactor to them. Never knew anybody studying it. It's all heavy-duty stuff. There's biomedical. I think that's the future. You can really go a lot of different ways. You're 20 years old, good. You're young. I don't know what your background is, but people say, is there a lot of math involved? The answer is yes, there's a lot of math involved. A lot of people think in aviation flying, there's a whole lot of complex math involved. Not true. Little bit of math involved. Engineering, a lot of math involved. You have to know it and love it. That's going to be like just breathing. You will use that for everything. I don't know what your background is, but your main courses, you're going to do the basics, physics and chemistry for sure. You need all that stuff just for material science. You need that stuff for the basic things. Something that throws people off a lot of times at the very beginning, they have these, I guess my son would call them weed out courses. It's in some ways going to engineering school is like going to medical school. There are certain courses that have a high attrition rate. It could be the chemistry, it could be the physics, kinematics, material structures. some of the beginning courses, typically people make it through the first semester, they keep going. So you really do need to have a strong background. The good thing is that as you're studying now, there's so many resources you have. Just YouTube. There's so many things you can do. Even if your instruction is not that great, you can get a jump on things and get ahead by almost like a YouTube university. If you get into areas that you really don't understand, there's probably somebody from NASA or something that's got extra time on their hands who's made outstanding videos that explains things in ways that you might not pick up if you looked at 100 books. It might solve a major problem in seconds. I've seen that done. I'm kind of envious. I wish I had some of that instead of long suffering that a lot of us had to do. So engineering is not going to be outsourced to AI totally. There's a lot of stuff AI can do, a lot of things AI can't do. So job security is probably pretty good. Aerospace engineering, if you're interested in that, usually that's a version of mechanical engineering, really. And a lot of engineering studies have like a common courses for maybe the first half of your studies in the last couple of years or whatever, then you kind of branch off into whatever your specialty is. But like I said, the basics are going to be the same and they're important. And sometimes you need them, and sometimes they're just weed out courses and you got to do it. But it's a very thorough education. I'm glad I did it. I found it to be very difficult, but also very rewarding when I got through it.
Wow, what a great answer from an engineer. I look at boxes, cardboard boxes, cans, everything. Everything you see is designed by an engineer. And they have big machines that fold the boxes and bend the cans and do all these things. So most of the things you ever touch are done by engineers. What a great, great explanation. I'm sure that guy will really appreciate it. Well, how about this good news? There was a lady named Nicole Harness who was selling tumblers on Amazon with the picture of Luke Combs on it, the country and western star. And she was doing pretty good, I guess. But then all of a sudden, she got sued for $250,000 because she used his likeness without his consent. 250 grand. Well, here's the good news. Luke Combs found out about it because he's not the one who sued him. He had a management company that I guess did the suing, but he found out about this. Not only did he pay $250,000 back to Nicole Harness for the lawsuit, she had 5,500 stuck in Amazon because they froze her account. And he said, you know what? What the heck? I'll send her double. So he sent her another $11,000. Dr. Paul, this is good news. He wasn't trying to make an extra buck. He's a multimillionaire, I'm sure. And he helped one of the small people. That's good news. God bless you, Luke Combs.
Yeah, that's really nice. I know he's a country western star out of Nashville, and that's the thing you don't really hear celebrities doing much. Some celebrities do quite a few things like that behind the scenes, without recognition, which is good. And that's always been the case. But that's very nice. I guess she was trying to sell some stuff. Yeah, when you use someone's likeness, and yeah, you can run into problems. Usually they give you like a cease and desist order and give you a chance, instead of just throwing something on you. Hope she wasn't ignoring those. I had a couple of those thrown at me my way when I was doing a couple of things, and I ceased and I desisted. No problems.
Well,
But
I had that with float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And we went to court. I went to court against Muhammad Ali's people, not against him, but his people. And what came out is I can use it anytime I want. I just can't use it with Muhammad Ali's face or name, which I never wanted to do anyway. Daddy came up with that saying. Drew Bundini Brown came up with float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So I didn't really want to use Ali with it anyway. But you got to be very careful when you do things like that.
yeah.
How about this one, Dr. Paul? Remember sickle cell anemia?
Yes.
Back not too many years ago, it was a real, real problem. The first thing I want to say about sickle cell, I had no idea what it was until I studied it just now. it was a cell, since we're Homo sapiens, they had malaria real bad in Africa back then, and this cell actually mutated to prevent malaria. Well, now, without the malaria, it's mutated again, and it started hurting a lot of people. Well, guess what, Dr. Paul Thompson? We have a cure for sickle cell anemia, and I never heard about it until we did some research. There is a cure for sickle cell anemia. That's the good news. The bad news, it costs $2 million for treatment. And that's a lot of money. Insurance usually pays for some of that, and I'm sure that cost will come down. But there is a cure for sickle cell anemia, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, that's from a thing called I guess CRISPR technologies, and I started hearing about that about a year and a half ago, just on a stock trading program. And basically, it goes into it's basically gene edit. It's amounts to gene editing, and basically looking at your body and finding ways that your body can fight some of these conditions. Some are chronic conditions. It's a new emerging technology that is I think it's going to revolutionize everything medically, probably in the next 20 years or less.
Well, that's some good news right there. Thank you, Dr. Paul. And you know what that brings us to? It brings us to a Wingman PSA. From the 11 facts in life, under fact number 5. Know the rules. They change with the game. Know the rules. They change with the game. And the reason I say that is because most things have rules. And when the rules are bad, in order to change them, you need to know them. But you can't, no matter how good of an athlete you are, no matter how great you are, if you play basketball and you pick up that ball and run, you can't play basketball anymore. If you hit a guy more than 6 times and foul him, you're out of the game. So in order to play the game and the game of life, know the rules. They change with the game. But don't forget, all rules aren't correct. But in order to change them, you need to know them. Do you agree with that, Dr. P?
Yeah. Know where you are. Know your territory. Different games have different rules. Different companies have different procedures.
All right, let's talk about this now. If you have any of these signs, why don't you just think about this? When you get around junk food, do you have intense cravings? Do you have the inability to resist certain foods? Are you feeling sluggish or tired after you eat those foods? Signs of withdrawal, headaches, irritability when you abstain from those foods, or you feel like you need more in order to get the same effect. Those are all signs of addiction, and they're addiction to junk food. And junk food is ultra-processed food. Let me give you an example. These are not junk foods. These are minimally processed foods. How about steel-cut oats, salmon fillets, barley, fresh fruit, potatoes? Those are not genetically changed. The high processed foods are sugary cereals, frozen fish sticks, canned ravioli, fruit juice, baked potato chips. Those are the kind of things. So what happens is these foods are actually made to give you an addiction. They're creamy, they're salty, they're sugary, they have texture. And these things actually create dopamine in your brain. And as soon as that dopamine starts going, you want more and more. And they have actually added things to all these ultra-processed foods, which are extremely bad for you. And that's why you seem like you can't get enough. And if you notice this, they're all around you. They're everywhere. And ultra-processed foods treat dopamine kind of like alcohol and cigarettes and nicotine. They actually can addict you. So I'll give you an example of an addiction. So I didn't eat sugar maybe for 4 or 5 months. Dr. Paul came over my house for a party, him and Kim, and they brought us this wonderful, I think it was $150 cake or something, to the party. And I didn't eat any, but everybody was talking about how good that cake is, how good that cake is. When the party was kind of over, the cake was almost done, but I stuck my finger in there. I wanted to taste it. I stuck my finger in, I ate some, it was delicious. Dr. Paul, do you know later that night when everybody was gone, I went back down to my basement and looked for that box because I wanted some more of that sugar. And I mean, I was a little bit upset when there was zero left. That's an addiction, Dr. Paul. That's an addiction. Junk food, they're ultra processed food, and they make it ultra palatable. What a great word that is. 1 out of 8 people are actually addicted to junk food, and it's all around us. And one more fact, Colombia, the country of Colombia, has now made junk food illegal. In other words, they're putting a 20% tax on all junk food in order to stop the madness. Dr. Paul, tell me about junk food because Reese's peanut butter cups are all in my brain.
Yeah, I try to, well, growing up, yeah, I did plenty of junk food. We all did. We survived somehow. But it's different now. We got a lot more chemicals and they are addictive. First of all, if you're to be forgiven, that cake was really, really, really good. I don't care who you are. That was and it cost that, or if not more. That wasn't a special cake. That was a place I go to. They make cakes for like high-end hotels and movie studios and real special places. You never find a place. It's between a barber shop and a T-Mobile place. You would never know it's there. It's like a place James Bond would go to have his stuff made. But yeah, you get these dopamine rushes. I don't eat much. But I had some yesterday. I don't do much chips. I had some kind of veggie chips or whatever. But these chips were treated with something. I was going to have 2 or 3. It turned to more like about 15. They're that good. I don't do that too much. I shouldn't be doing this. I need to go get something good to eat. So I'll admit to cheating yesterday. I don't do that too much. But yeah, you can do that. I get the same thing with frozen yogurt sometimes. I had a big dopamine rush when I got some about a couple weeks ago at a place nearby that makes it just right. And I had the chocolate chips in it and all kinds of stuff. It was great. It was over. But it was almost when it hit my mouth, it was almost like you're meeting a long lost friend. You guys have been separated for a while, and now you're back together, and it's just you and me, you and the spoon, and it's weird. Then it's over, and I drive home.
Well, Dr. Paul, Lay's potato chips actually told you can't just eat one. And
That's
that
right.
was true. They processed their chips, so you had to have more than one. Now, the difference between you and I really need to abstain totally from it because once it gets in me, it's like any other drug. You want more and more and more. But here's the great news. I abstain from carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates like bread and all that stuff. I stopped eating that. I stopped eating sugar. And guess what? I didn't crave it at all. And it wasn't until I stuck my finger in your cake that all of it rushed back. And then I was like a junkie looking for that sugar, Dr. Paul.
Yep. Yeah, that was you and your old friend getting back together.
Yeah, me and my old
Drew
friend.
was talking to you. Mr. Drew, we missed you for a long time. Glad you're back. Yeah, talks to you.
Reese's peanut butter cups actually talk to me like that. All right. Guess what, Dr. Paul? You get Amazon all the time. Your Amazon driver delivers your packages. Well, guess what? Amazon has come up with a way that if you tell Alexa, say thank you to my driver, Amazon will give that driver $5. And they're going to do it up to $2 million. But all you have to do is tell Alexa, thank my driver, and they will donate $5 to that driver. Isn't that pretty cool?
That's really nice. That's a nice thing to do. Again, sometimes technology can be used to help somebody.
No doubt. And, that's under the thing called the gouge. In the Navy, we have the gouge. And the gouge is shit you need to know. That's not always told to you. So the gouge is thank you, Amazon driver. And all you have to do is tell Alexa, tell my driver, thank you. Okay, Dr. Paul. Mental health is extremely important, extremely important. And I think most of the problems in our country come from improper mental health. And a lot of people don't have the ability to change their mental health. Well, we have a couple of tips. These are things you can do to actually make you feel better. These are physical things you can do when you're feeling down in the dumps and nothing's happening is right and you don't feel good. Try these 6 things. You ready?
Ready.
All right. Music is the number one thing that can change your mood. Also, puzzles, doing puzzles, singing and dancing changes your mood. Drawing, painting, sculpting, actually crafting, making things. And Dr. Paul's favorite, creative writing. If you start doing some of these things, they actually make you feel better. And the best way to get out of your own self is to help somebody else. You won't feel bad if you're helping somebody else. Dr. Paul, what do you think about those mood changes?
Yeah, those are nice little things. Yeah, the writing helps me. Uh, I just enjoy doing it, even if it's difficult. It's funny sometimes afterwards I'll feel like I just did a heavy workout, you know. So it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling like you've worked out, you've worked your brain, you're tired actually, but you're stimulating a lot of other, nerve fibers, uh, and creative juices that get you going and keep your mind active, particularly as you get older, because that dementia risk is there. There was a very distinguished lawyer. His name is Charles Ogletree that passed away not too long ago, and I used to see him on TV, and he was, I guess, a friend of an acquaintance of mine, and actually was the keynote speaker at my son's college graduation. Same guy you see on TV. Anyway, a brilliant mind, but I believe he died of dementia or Alzheimer's. And towards the end, he wasn't that sharp guy apparently, as you might imagine. So anybody it can attack anyone of any intelligence level. Such as, well, I'm smart now. Well, you might be, but you need to take preventative measures to ensure your health, and that's with your nutrition and your activity.
That's excellent. And you know what? Uh, Charles Ogletree, he was from Harvard and he was really, really smart. And I loved to hear him talk. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to start learning a new language. I'm going to delve into Spanish and learn how to speak Spanish like I want to. I mean, I can speak a little bit here and there because, I grew up in Spanish Harlem where Puerto Ricans were all around us and they spoke Spanish. So there's where my little bit of Spanish came. All right, so this is called the Wingman Show, and that means we always feature somebody who's helped out somebody else. A wingman, a guy who checks their 6. Well, Dr. Paul is about to tell you our wingman of the week, and he is another badass pilot. Dr. Paul, who's our wingman this week?
Our wingman this week is a gentleman, a captain, actually retired lieutenant colonel, Bob Pardo, Pardo. And this is a wingman's wingman. This is quite a story. In March of 1967, during the Vietnam War, the U.S. Air Force was on a bombing mission uh, in Hanoi, North Vietnam, to destroy a steel mill. I think it's the only steel mill they had. But their job was to destroy the steel mill, and they launched with 4 F-4s loaded with bombs, 4 Air Force F-4Ds. They roll in on the steel mill. I think they're flying around 13,000 feet or so. They roll in. What also, I guess they didn't know, or maybe they did know, but not to the extent. That steel mill was heavily defended with anti-aircraft and missiles. In any case, they roll in. They drop their bombs. The 2 of the airplanes are hit. The one was Captain, at that time, Captain Bob Pardo. He was the flight lead. And the wingman, Captain Earl Amon. Both of them were hit. Both of them were hit underneath. Pardo said he was hit. He thought he was hit like maybe once or twice. And Amon got hit once or twice. Anyway, they exit the target. They know they're hit, and they're headed out. And Eamon realizes this. The wingman realizes that he's losing a lot of fuel. I guess he might have been hitting the fuel tanks. He's losing a lot of fuel, and their goal was to get to Laos, out of Vietnam into Laos, an adjoining country, and probably punch out there. They didn't want to go down to North Vietnam and become definite or get killed by locals or become prisoners of war. So they're desperately trying to get to Laos. And then Eamon realizes that, I don't have enough gas to even get there. He must be losing a lot of fuel. So Pardo decides to do something really extraordinary. He said he didn't want them to eject over North Vietnam and become captured. So he said, well, maybe I can push you. So he gets behind his airplane. Pardo gets behind Eamon's airplane. He tells him to open the drag chute compartment. I guess the drag chute to slow it down. I guess it popped out and probably separated because of the speed. And his plan was to take the nose of his airplane and push into the back of this open compartment. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work. He couldn't really do that. So then he told him to do something, to lower his hook. Now, these are Air Force F-4s, but the F-4 was made for the Navy. It was supposed to be an interceptor for the U.S. Navy. The Air Force bought them also, as did the Marines. So everything came with a tail hook. So he lowered the hook, and the Air Force would use a hook now and then if they needed to stop it, if they had to stop with a hydraulic problem, so the hook could come in. So anyway, he tells him to drop his hook. He drops the tail hook, sitting down, and Bob Pardo maneuvers his airplane, and he puts his windscreen against the hook of this airplane and pushes it. He got him to, basically to shut his engines down because the turbulence would have been too much. Then he was actually able to push the airplane to a point, even though his windscreen was starting to crack a little bit. He's pushing his airplane with the windscreen. This could be pretty fatal to him if that hook came through the windscreen. It'd be bad. I had a friend that almost was decapitated in a quasi-similar scenario. It's another story. But he was pushing the airplane, and they were losing altitude. But he slowed his descent rate. Instead of the thing plummeting out of the sky, he was descending at like 1,500 feet per minute. Instead of just going down. And so it was sort of working. The story gets worse because Pardo is running out of gas too. He's hit, and he's having problems with one of Pardo's engines. It catches fire. He ends up shutting down that engine. So now you've got two F-4s being propelled by one engine, one that's pushing. And they're going downhill slowly. Long story short, he pushed it about 88 miles into Laos. And the plan was, okay, it's time for everybody to eject because they're all out of gas. So they separate, and Eamon and his weapons system officer punch out first, followed by Pardo and his systems officer. I apologize for not knowing their names. I should. So they punch out, they land, they hear gunfire. Long story short, I think they got rescued by Marines, but they got rescued by American forces and taken back to the base. And guess what? They wanted to bring Pardo up on charges. He actually got reprimanded. They wanted to bring him up on charges for not just getting his airplane out of there and letting his wingman just go for himself. So he just said, well, he wanted to help. He wanted to help a friend. Long story short, one of the things that sort of saved him was his wing commander was a very, very famous fighter pilot named Robin Olds. I've done books on him. Robin Olds. Robin Olds spoke up for him, and he didn't get in trouble. He finished his Air Force career, and strangely enough, about 20 years later, they reviewed his case, and they removed the letter of reprimand and ended up giving them all, both airplanes, the Silver Star.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
that was a good story. Gone on a little long with this, but Captain Pardo, Lieutenant Colonel Pardo, passed away recently, and his story has just become a little more well known.
Well, Dr. Paul, that was an excellent story. And what they called that was the Pardo push. It's infamous now, the Pardo push. And believe me, as both of us know as being pilots, to even imagine putting a hook against your windscreen and pushing another airplane is way, way incredible. Way, way incredible. Well, Dr. Paul, whatever you and all our listeners think is important, whatever you and all our listeners think is beautiful, and whatever you and all of our listeners, whatever makes you happy, may you have that today and forever. I pray for peace.
I pray for peace too. And much appreciation to all those who listen, like, and share our message. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. We'd like to get our subscribers up. Our subscribers are not as high as they should be. So a lot of people are watching, but please hit the subscribe button. That'll help out with the algorithm. We appreciate it.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and refer to use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.